The room was silent, the only sound being the distant hum of the news channel playing in the background. Ibrahim Traoré, the man who had fought tirelessly to lead his country with resilience, stood still in front of the camera. His face, once hardened by the weight of political turmoil and war, had now softened in disbelief. The screen in front of him flickered, and then came the voice he had never expected to hear. "Today we stand with you, Ibrahim. You are not alone." Barack Obama's voice, calm and powerful, echoed across the room, crashing into Ibrahim's mind like a wave. His eyes welled up, a tightness in his throat, and before he could stop it, a tear rolled down his face. This wasn't the world he had fought for, but in this moment it was everything he needed. The journey to this moment had not been easy for Ibrahim. He had known loss, suffering, and the biting coldness of betrayal from both his own people and the outside world. Burkina Faso, his homeland, had been ravaged by internal strife and external threats for years. The innocent cries of children in the streets and the haunting silence of broken families had been his constant companions. Ibrahim's rise to power was born from this chaos, a young, determined man stepping into the void left by a crumbling political system. He didn't just want to lead. He needed to. The weight of a nation's broken dreams rested on his shoulders, and each step he took was weighed with the cries of those who had fallen before him. But despite his strength, despite his will to push forward, there was a part of him that felt hollow. He had led his people through countless trials, but the bitterness of it all had worn him down. He'd been abandoned by international powers when he had needed their support the most. He had watched as the promises of aid and peace were used, as bargaining chips in games that had little to do with the suffering of the people he vowed to protect. The evening had started as any other. Ibrahim sat in a cold conference room, his fingers idly tapping against the wood of the table, the faint scent of burnt coffee in the air. The room was stark, no decorations, no comfort, just a large table, empty chairs, and the constant hum of the television in the corner. He was accustomed to the silence that hung heavy in spaces like these, where even the air felt thick with anticipation. The phone on the table buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. He glanced at it, his heart skipping a beat, as the words, "breaking," news flashed on the screen. Ibrahim had seen the headlines countless times before, crises, conflicts, and political upheaval, but this time, it felt different. The notification was from a news outlet, a live broadcast. A name appeared on the screen, the letters flashing in bold, almost too heavy to believe. Barack Obama. His heart pounded in his chest. Was this a mistake? What could Obama possibly want with him? The former U.S. president was a figure of monumental influence, someone who had long seemed distant, almost unreachable. Ibrahim had respected him from afar, admired his calm demeanor and eloquent speeches, but the distance between them had always felt like an unbridgeable gap. What could a man like Obama want with someone like him? A leader of a small African nation struggling to survive in the face of overwhelming odds? As the broadcast began, Ibrahim's attention snapped to the screen, his eyes narrowing in focus. Barack Obama's face appeared, the familiar features of the former president now, aged with time but still carrying the same gravitas. Obama's voice filled the room, steady and compassionate, but it was the words themselves that stopped Ibrahim in his tracks. "I've watched with deep admiration," Obama began, his voice soft but carrying the weight of years of wisdom. "How one man can rise from the ashes of a nation's pain and carry the weight of his people's future. Ibrahim Traoré, you have shown us what it means to lead with integrity, with courage, and with unwavering faith in your people." Ibrahim's breath caught in his throat and he stiffened. Was he hearing correctly? The words felt like a wave crashing over him, each syllable carrying the weight of a lifetime. Here, in this moment, Barack Obama, someone he had long admired, from afar, was speaking directly to him. The weight of his past struggles, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights spent worrying for his country, all of it was suddenly acknowledged by someone who had once stood on the world stage as a beacon of hope and strength. But then, the words that followed shattered everything Ibrahim had ever known about politics, about leadership, about the world. Stand with you, Ibrahim. Your fight is our fight. He couldn't breathe. He was rooted to the spot, staring at the screen, unsure of how to process the magnitude of what he had just heard. The room felt like it was closing in on him, the air growing thick with emotion. His body trembled as a swell of emotion rose. Within him, a mixture of disbelief, relief, and a profound sense of validation. He had fought for his country, his people, for years, and the world had largely ignored him. But now here was a man who had been at the top of the political world, offering not just support but solidarity. Obama's voice continued, but Ibrahim didn't hear the words. His mind was racing, memories flooding back. The endless days in the trenches, the hopelessness he had often felt when promises of international aid turned into nothing more than empty words, the constant struggle for survival, the deaths, the betrayals. But now Obama was telling him that his fight was not just his own. It was a shared fight, a battle for dignity, for hope, for a future worth living. Ibrahim, you are not alone. Obama's voice resonated through the speakers, each word punctuated with the weight of a global community standing beside him. Ibrahim's heart pounded in his chest as tears welled up in his eyes. His face, which had once been a mask of determination, now crumbled in the face of something deeper. The stoic leader, hardened by years of political warfare, now found himself vulnerable in a way he had never allowed himself to be before. The tears fell freely, a release of all the pain he had held inside for so long. For the first time in years, Ibrahim allowed himself to feel the warmth of belonging. His people had been struggling for so long, and he had led them through countless trials. But it had always felt like an uphill battle with no end in sight. This acknowledgement, this recognition was not just political. It was deeply personal. It was a recognition of the shared humanity between nations, of a world that could come together in the face of hardship. As the broadcast continued, Obama's words shifted from praise to a message of hope for the future. But Ibrahim's mind was still reeling from what he had just heard. For all his strength, all his resolve, the one thing he had always feared was isolation, being left behind by a world that cared little for the struggles of a small African nation. But now, that fear had been lifted, if only for this one fleeting moment. This wasn't just a political gesture. It was a message from a world that had, at long last, recognized the suffering of the African people. Obama wasn't just speaking as a former president. He was speaking as a man who understood the power of unity, of coming together in the face of injustice. He had seen the struggles of nations like Ibrahim's, and he was telling the world that it was time to change the narrative. Time to listen, time to support, time to stand together. The camera cut back to Ibrahim, his eyes red and swollen from crying. He took a deep breath, wiping his tears away, trying to compose himself. But in that moment, he realized something profound. This was more than just a political statement. This was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where his people were no longer invisible, where their pain would no longer be ignored. The world had seen them, and for the first time, the world was standing with them. Ibrahim sat there in the quiet room, the weight of Obama's words still heavy in his chest. The man who had once stood as a symbol of hope for the world had now handed that torch to him. The tears stopped, but the ache in his heart remained, not of sorrow, but of recognition. Recognition that his fight was not in vain. As the camera pulled away and the broadcast ended, Ibrahim stood, the weight of his position heavy on his shoulders, once more. But this time, he carried it with the knowledge that he was not alone. He stepped away from the desk, looking out the window, where the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. A new day had arrived. A new hope had been born. And as the sun rose over the land he had fought so hard to protect, Ibrahim Traoré knew that the future, for the first time, seemed just a little bit brighter. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.